then on the second weekend after the conference, I did my trainers training. There were only 2 of us. So it was super intense and very intimate. I liked that a lot. And everything changed. Everything changed. I changed. Our curriculum changed. My outlook in life changed. How I view people changed. How I deal with myself changed. Everything changed once I fully, totally understood what parts therapy is about. And so here you are, getting close to your first qualification from the Charles Tebbets Foundation and joined with our institute. But when you master this and you understand it, it's not rocket science, but it has to be done right. Then you learn now the first technique in hypnosis where you actually uncover a cause. So if you haven't done anything further than parts therapy, then you have been dabbling with symptomatic hypnotherapy. And I'm not belittling it because you cannot, and this is vitally important, so whenever I make a big hoo-ha about something, then it's probably important for the exam you write tomorrow. Okay, so I'm making a big hoo-ha right now. You can never ever do a parts therapy session as a first session on a client. It requires deep trance. And if you have a client for the first time, I would assume 9 out of 10 people have some misconceptions. They're probably a little anxious, going into the lion's den, into the therapy room of a hypnotherapist. And being anxious means that they probably hold on to their critical faculty, which means that they're not going deeply into trance. Have you noticed with your own trance, when you did self-mastery and the subsequent courses, every time you were subjected to trance and you allowed it, you would go a little bit deeper or easier, right? Now your client is the same. Why would the client be different? So you always, for parts therapy, for regression, for past life, you do need preparation sessions until you feel that your client is ready for this. So that's the one thing why symptomatic hypnotherapy definitely has its place. But the other thing is that sometimes that's all the client needs. There are no deep underlying issues or traumas or whatever. They're just funnily wired, and with the right scripts, the right techniques that you learned in CC1 and RSA, especially in CC2, I know in my practice very often clients taken into a really good resource state is sometimes all they know. They've been thinking about their issue for a long time. And they just need to, number one, what RSA is about, being put into a state where they believe, I can do that, it's possible, there's hope, bless you. And number two, I'm worthy. I'm worthy of being who I want to be. Because if you chunk it down to the absolute bare minimum, I have found that we all have the same problem. I'm not good enough. Think about that. It's a more philosophical question, and I do have some philosophical answers to that, which don't really have a space here. So what we achieve in RSA to give the client hope and the feeling of deservability, I don't know whether that word exists, but I use it all the time, it's kind of the prerequisite for doing deeper techniques. So what you've done so far is super valuable, might have done the trick with your client, or as somebody was telling me earlier, I can't remember who it was, they get better, at least to a degree, or totally, but then they fall back into the old habit. It's because the programming, lately I'm referring to this as apps, like on our phone. Yeah, so we have these apps and they run programs, and they don't understand that there is another program that is conflicting. They have no analysis of the surrounding. They just act and do what they're designed to do. And so the parts that we have, it's exactly the same thing. They live and act in isolation. They have a reason for existing, and they will do that come hell or high water. So you might have some relief or temporary success even, but if this app that really runs the show, whatever it is not addressed, it might come back just by itself or when it's triggered. So today now, you now add finally a tool to your toolbox to do the real deep groundwork, discovering a cause, release, and doing subconscious relearning. Does that excite you? So I want to read something to you. It's a mouthful. By the end of today, I bet you will understand this, because that's the philosophy of what parts therapy is about. And we're going to spend the first day today on the theory. We're really going to pump it because you're fresh, you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. We're going to put it all in. Tomorrow morning we'll see where we can have to fill some loopholes, and then we're going to practice. But we're going to have a few practice rounds today as well on certain aspects. I'd like to liven it up a bit, otherwise it gets a bit boring, me just talking and you just listening. Okay, so here we go. In 1952, Paul Verdun is a hoo-ha. Paul Verdun is a name you want to remember. Paul Verdun describes Sigmund Freud's ego states, which Sigmund Freud called the id, the ego, and the superego, as resembling separate personalities, but differing in that no one of them exists without the awareness of the other. I, which is Paul Verdun, I find, however, that in many cases, different parts take complete control while the total individual is in a trance state of which he is unaware. Gives an example. A bulimic will experience time distortion while binging, eating for over an hour, believing only 5 minutes have lapsed. Both personalities know that the other exists, but the first is unaware of the other's existence during the period of the deviant behavior. Woof. What a sentence. Is there anybody here who has promised themselves not to do something ever again? Yeah? Is there anybody here who has promised themselves to start doing something from now on?
On Monday.
Okay. How has that worked out? Okay. And please, what we're doing now, you don't have to share anything, but reflect this in yourself, because if you understand it in yourself, then you understand what parts therapy is about. Okay. So let's look, for example, any symptom. Let's take a gambler. He goes gambling and he's doing this really good because he's lost his fortune, he lost his family, he lost everything. And he told himself hundreds of times, this is not good for me. So the gambler does all this and has promised himself many times, I'm not going to do it again. Because from a logical point of view, doing this makes no sense. If I would be winning with my gambling, that might be a different story, but overall I'm losing. And look, the price I had to pay for this, right? And then something happens, whatever the trigger is. And the next thing is that the gambler will find himself gambling. Have you ever tried to lose weight? And the next thing is probably guilt, that you let yourself down because you got into the one habit that you didn't want to do, eating the cake or whatever it is. So there is no awareness, usually, from the trigger to doing it. The next awareness that we have, damn it, I've done it again. You know that, oops, I'm doing it again. You know? She didn't know she was singing about parts therapy. So reflect this on yourself. There is a part that knows how you would like things to be, and there is a part that really enjoys something, and you are hosting both parts. And if you're aware of these things, you can look to that part and you can look to that part, but we don't see it that way. First thing that we do is when we have something that's detrimental to us or to others, is that we are bad. We are this or that. The first relief comes when we realize it is just a part of me that drives me to do that. That means a percentage of me is not functioning well, but the rest is actually doing really okay. It's a relief. I'm not bad, right? But what happens when something triggers this and there is no conscious, there's no interference? It's like a fight and flight response, if you want it like that. I can't say, oops, it's a small lion, I only need little adrenaline. It doesn't happen. I get triggered into fear, my autonomic nervous system reacts, oops, I'm there. And this is quite similar, actually. It's just completely different. It's got nothing to do with the nervous system, although it can possibly do something to the nervous system. I made the decision, I wanted to be that way. Something happens and I find myself in the situation. Who can identify with that? I can. And I find myself in the situation, and then the only thing we remember in this amnesia is kind of the guilt or the sadness or whatever we feel about that we let ourselves down again, right? So that means then that whatever part in me got triggered must be tremendously powerful. More powerful than my conscious decision to not do it again. Or vice versa, if it is something that I want to implement, but there is a part of me that says, no way, we're not going to do that. So Freud was saying these parts, and there could be many, we're not just talking about two, these parts are living and existing and they know of each other. And what Paul Verdun said, and he is right, because his theory has been picked up and developed afterwards, he says no, especially during the deviant behavior, they are not aware that they coexist. You as a host might have the awareness of those two parts, but this lives in isolation and that one lives in isolation. There is no communication there, none whatsoever. And that, in a nutshell, is what parts therapy is doing. We're opening up a communication platform to learn and to mediate between these parts. That's what the nutshell is.